This next poem, I am writing a biography of Harriet Tubman, and of course I based the whole thing on the fact that there had never been a biography of Harriet Tubman written, and last month there was not one, not two, but 3 biographies released. So I'm going to have to do something very different, obviously. Where's my O's? Ah. Don't you hate people who are not organized? Oh, no, I'm going to have to read something else. Okay, I'll do this. If I find the other poem, I'll read it. This is, people are always ask me how I got started writing poetry, and it has a lot to do with my father. I'm an only child, and when I was being raised, my mother would say, okay, you're a little colored girl, you can be a teacher or a nurse. A teacher or a nurse, a teacher or a nurse. What can I be? A nurse or a teacher, a nurse or a teacher. And I say, I want to be a newspaper reporter. And my mother was like, you can't do that. Only white men do that. Which I found was true later. But so my father would pull me into the kitchen and say, you know, you can be anything you want to be. And he used to read me newspaper stories at bedtime, so my whole idea of magic, of people coming into the neighborhood and staying for an hour or so and coming away with stories we couldn't even find, I mean, that's where I got it from. But it also came from my 4th grade teacher, who one day wrote a word on the board, and the word definitely fascinated me. And if I had to trace my love of writing back to one word, it would be this word. This poem is called Related to the Buttercup, Blooms in Spring. 1. What do we do with these huge gifts of the throat and tongue? How do we manage? Whenever we sit down to pen a poem about a shamelessly overwrought sun or the way a dead flower still shimmies in autumn wind, every time we think that poetry exists simply to rub our tired heads and croon us good things, an innocent syllable turns on us, lashes out blindly, and draws blood. Poets are at war with the words that serve us. We adorn and worship, dress them in primp and take them parading, yet they constantly betray us. They refuse to answer when we ask if they are hiding something. Instead, drenched in navy blue, each one means much less than it could, much less than it was meant to. Poets hate words for the beggars they have made of us, pronouncing us both puff and fierce, belittling and bewitching, cramming our voices into the far reaches of every room where the hungry pause their pens, lean forward, and strain to hear. 2. I used to think I was the only one who could see the wondrous stars shimmering riot outside my window. Mama, my stars are here, I'd say, my stars. And though the thin kiss of light wasn't nearly enough, I welcomed them by grabbing a notebook, a tooth-marked Bic, and writing until I got dizzy from trying to stuff whole worlds into the stingy space of a college-ruled line. I wrote until the careful script wandered, until the stars blinked themselves dim and said, good night, Patricia Ann. It's late even for us, and it hurts to watch how hard you dream. One morning, I woke to find whole pages filled with a single word, anemone. Over and over, N's and M's straining to stern Palmer method hilltops, but never, never beyond the sky's thin blue line. Anemone. Miss Stein, I can't explain the dizzy I felt the day you chalked that word on the board and said, who can pronounce this? I don't remember enough to give you breath in this poem. All I recall is slim and dark hair vaguely flipped, a slight sour to you, and the wary smile of a young Jewish girl teaching on Walnut Street down the block from your million miles away. Funny how you changed my life by introducing a word you figured would stump us all. Funny how I took a try and a light grew slow and unbeckoned behind your eyes. That one word was sweet silver on my new tongue. It kept coming back to my mouth, the very first sound I wanted to own, to name myself after. I wanted no one else to ever utter this. Even now, listen to how anemone circles, turns round, surprises itself. At 9, I wanted to live my little life just like that. That day, I gave that word a home just under my breath, and at least 100 times I drew on the drug of it, serving it up to the anxious air, and all that before I even knew what it meant. If you never remember feeling that way about a single word, sensing a burn in the sheer power of the sound of it, lift up your poetry, all those thick, important pages, and see that it is resting on nothing. Then shred those sheets, Toss them to sky and lie prone beneath the empty flutter. You must own one word completely before you can own another. Miss Stein, you are one of the reasons I wish I was 9 again. Go ahead, make me 9 again. Take me back to when I wasn't afraid of anything except long division and the words, go pull me off a switch. When Karen Ford and I pulled our panties down and wriggled up against each other to see what the fuss was about, and I never wrote about the fire down there, the fire that time. Miss Stein, I couldn't stop writing. I wrote myself tall and long-haired. I wrote myself heroic. I wrote myself white, Cherokee, cheerleader, distressed damsel in Alan Ladd's arms. I wrote myself angelic. I wrote myself bitch. I wrote stories where I was always the primary twinkle, the beacon, inevitably envied. I wrote anemone over and over in determined ink, the loops and hilltops perfect. When I was 9, I knew for a fact that I could whip the world upright with a bic and any kind of paper, that the stars would always flood my soul with just enough light. Anemone, anemone, anemone. Back then, I walked streets where the barbershops left their doors open, and all manners of glory spilled out, charms and curses, all spritzed with that mango-scented oil that makes black heads shimmer. Curses piled upon compliments, my people razzing and razor sharp, snippets of songs in the middle of sentences, spontaneous doo-wop where any 2 lines came together to make a corner. Sitting there next to my daddy, I was a little woman, sweet little crumb snatcher. Hey, baby, you a pretty one. Won't be long before those boys start sniffing around. I'd squeeze my eyes shut, let their lies move over me and move me from ashy to a prettier place. Such is the power of words. I knew these men would have a place in my stories, crowns wobbling on shaved heads, all their ain't done bins and must-have-haves and done gone for goods, languaging the air of the next world I create. I wrote their bodies arcing over mine, their kisses on the top of my head, their lifting me up off this earth and whirling me around till nothing made sense but the spin. I wrote about how they wore heartbreak in their eyes, mad all morning at that whiskey bottle. I heard how they talked about women with both craving and knives in their throats. I waited for the stars. Then I wrote about loving them. Come on in here, baby, they'd say, always carrying that notebook. Come on in here, sit this chair, and write me something pretty. I wrote about losing them. Miss Stein, you unlatched this fever, and wherever you are, may you be blessed by whatever God means to you. Anemone, anemone, a sweet beginning I can hold in my mouth. I live on the taste of it when my pen won't move. To write these things. Oh, okay. This is a jazz poem. It's like really old. Everyone's heard it, but I have to kind of loosen up. And the first time I did this poem, anybody ever been to a Patti LaBeouf concert and she kicks her foot and the shoe goes out and goes up on the audience? My shoe came off. It was like in the 10th row. I was like, well, whatever.